I work at a haunted oil field in Montana. Breaking the rules could cost me my life. I never should have opened that door. The chill creeping down my spine told me everything I needed to know. I stood in the middle of an oil field, dark trees swaying like hands in the night, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. Each day started the same. I'd drive in, the truck rattling over the gravel road, surrounded by an endless sea of black and gray equipment. The smell of oil mixed with the damp earth hung heavy in the air, stinging my nose. But today was different. Today, a shadow moved just outside the corner of my eye. I shook my head, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light. Still, my heart raced in my chest, a thunderous beat begging me to escape. The wind picked up, shrieking through the creaks of broken machinery. I could almost hear the past echoing off the rusted pipes, voices, cries, laughter. What had happened here? And why did I feel the urge to turn back, to run, to scream? Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, but every time I looked closer, nothing was there. Just the darkness, cold and menacing. That I pressed on, suppressing the growing dread that clawed at my throat. The faint sound of dripping water echoed in the silence, punctuated by the sudden bang of a loose metal sheet. A chill swept through me, sending a shudder down my spine. I glanced around, trying to find the source of the noise, but all I found was that oppressive blackness looming over me. Then, a faint whisper slid through the air. A name, perhaps. The wind twisted it, making it unrecognizable yet urgent. My chest tightened. Something was wrong. I felt it in my bones, a sense of doom hanging over the oil field like an executioner's blade. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I swallowed hard, stepping cautiously toward the source of the whisper, drawn in despite the rising terror within me. Suddenly, a loud crash, something tumbling to the ground behind me. I spun around, my heart racing, eyes wide. Nothing moved in the dark, just the unyielding silence. The oil rigs loomed overhead, their silhouettes eerie against the dull moonlight. I could feel the cold sweat trickle down my back as I took a step toward the exit. That's when I saw it. A figure, vague and shrouded in darkness, stood at the edge of the field, just beyond the ring of light from my truck's headlights. My breath caught in my throat. It seemed to beckon me. A part of me wanted to run, but another part couldn't look away. The figure was close enough now that I could almost make out features just as a loud crack echoed through the night. The ground shook, a low rumble that sent vibrations up my legs. I stumbled backward, eyes locked onto the apparition. Then with a deafening slam, a nearby door burst open, slamming against the wall, sending a wave of cold air sweeping past me. I froze. The figure vanished, swallowed by the darkness, and all that remained was my hollow breath joining the silence surrounding me. My heart pounded. What had I walked into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The wind howled around me, carrying with it the decaying scent of the oil field and, strangely, something else, something rotten. As the night deepened, an oppressive darkness enveloped me, each shadow stretching further as if reaching for my very soul. I took a step back, my eyes still flitting nervously towards the gaping door that had swung open. It loomed like a dark mouth ready to swallow what little hope remained. Forcing myself to breathe, I turned towards the door, its frame splintered and jagged, a haunting threshold between the known and the unknown. I could hear the faint creaking of the hinges, almost like sobbing, echoing in the stillness. With every beat of my heart, a cacophony of whispers swelled, slithering through my mind like ghostly tendrils, urging me to leave. But curiosity, fiendishly insistent, pulled me forward, against every instinct screaming for me to flee. I stepped into the shadowy interior. It was dark, a darkness so thick it felt tangible. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam quivering in my unsteady grip as it swept across the peeling walls adorned with faded photographs and dusty equipment. The long-abandoned break room appeared before me, littered with remnants of another era. A state-funded bulletin board still clung to the wall, filled with work schedules and warnings, but among them, written in an unsteady, frantic scrawl, was a single phrase, "Leave before it claims you." My breath faltered as I studied the chaotic handwriting. There had been a desperation behind those words, a fear I could feel resonating through the air. Then, like a sudden gust of wind, the temperature dropped, and the flashlight flickered. Shadows darted across the walls, forming grotesque shapes that morphed like blown ash. Suddenly, unholy laughter erupted behind me, echoing through the confined space, chilling my blood. I whirled around, panicking, my heart pounding like a war drum. The room spun as my mind raced with thoughts of the figure I had envisioned earlier. Had it been real? Was someone else in here with me? "Who's there?" I stammered, voice breaking. A silence followed, suffocating and cold. I felt like prey, the hairs on my arms bristling as the laughter dulled to a sinister whisper. It no longer felt like I was alone, it felt more like an audience, hidden in the shadows, delighted by my fear. My breath came in short bursts as dread wrapped itself around my throat, constricting ever tighter. I turned back towards the door, ready to bolt, when the lights overhead flickered violently, plunging me into darkness for a heartbeat. With a flash, my flashlight momentarily caught something, a figure, but not the one beckoning me before. This one was hunched, features obscured, yet somehow, I knew that it was watching me, waiting. No longer a mere shadow, it was something darker, raw and hungry. The laughter returned, echoing off the walls, more mocking this time, tainted with pain. "You need to know," it hissed, sounding as if it were coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. "What we found, what we had, it will claim you too." A deafening crash shattered the air, sending me sprawling backward, my flashlight skidding away to reveal an old table, splintered and overturned. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. One thought screamed through my mind, escape, but as I reached for the door, it slammed shut, locking me in. The figure inched closer, emerging from the shadows with a slowness that felt tainted with anticipation. Its face came into the light, skin taut and decayed, eyes reflecting nothing but darkness and abyss. "Now you see us," it rasped, voice like gravel against stone. "Now it's your turn." In that moment, the room transformed, the air vibrating with terror. Objects broke free from their stillness, rattling like marionettes with severed strings. I felt the world spinning out of my control as the walls around me began to pulse, wrapping me in a sordid embrace. "Join us," it chanted, a chorus of voices melding together, each word cutting deeper than the last, with adrenaline surging. Like a wildfire, I slammed my shoulder against the door, throwing my weight into it, desperate for escape. The handle twisted under my grip, but it wouldn't budge. Then I heard something new. A distant wailing, rising from the depths of the oil field, mingling with the laughter, a sound of agony, raw and piercing. It grew louder, filled with anguish beyond this world. I turned back, eyes widening, as the figure drew closer, opening its mouth wide in a silent scream. That was when I realized I wasn't alone in this haunted place. The shadows behind it were writhing, countless figures flowing in like a tide, more than I could comprehend, manifestations of lost souls trapped in a nightmare of their own. They surged forward, hungry for the warmth of life. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled violently, knocking me off balance. And in that split second, the door swung open, revealing the night drenched in moonlight, a stark contrast to the chaos inside. I hesitated, torn between the safety outside and the chaos behind me, breathless and surrounded by the chilling echo of forgotten screams. But it was now or never. This was my chance. I bolted for the exit, heart hammering, only to hear the screaming grow louder behind me, drowning my thoughts, wrapping me in darkness. As I leaped through the door, I felt the cold grasp of something wrapping around my ankle, pulling me back just as midnight engulfed my senses. I looked back, eyes wide with terror, but the grip tightened mercilessly. I gasped as the shadows surged forth, the laughter crescendoing in a monstrous delight, echoing off the walls of this deathly realm. Would I be claimed, just another lost soul in this cursed oil field? Just before I could be pulled under, I screamed, no. But the darkness enveloped me, and all I could see was a shadowed multitude, hungry and waiting. Panic surged through me, the insistent grasp of the shadows like icy fingers digging into my flesh. I could feel the temperature plummeting as I fought against the invisible force pulling me back into the belly of the haunted structure. The door loomed ahead, an unkind sentinel to freedom, but I could not let those wretched hands drag me into that suffocating darkness. Please, let me go. I roared, desperation adding a primal edge to my voice. It was swallowed by the mocking laughter that erupted, bouncing cruelly within the night. The shadows emerged, swirling around me a vortex of despair and longing, hundreds of anguished faces morphing and writhing. They were desperate for release, drawing energy from my fear, and I could sense their intensity, the raw hunger in their hollow eyes. Suddenly, something shifted in the shadows, a figure detached itself from the mass, drifting closer with a fluid grace that defied the laws of nature. It was ethereal, a shimmering silhouette that flickered between existence and oblivion. Its face was familiar, someone from my past, a friend I had lost long ago. The semblance of her smile cut through the darkness, and I felt a momentary flicker of recognition, pulled at the strings of my nostalgia. Help me! I urged, my voice cracking as I fought the grip around my ankle. You don't have to stay here, you can escape with me. But her expression shifted, dread crept into her eyes, shadows warping her form, twisting her smile into a shiver. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice harmonizing with the chorus of regret. This place, it binds us, renews our torment. Leave while you still can, before it claims you too. It was then that I realized it wasn't her at all. It was a lure, a cruel imitation crafted from despair. Anger surged through me as I wrestled against the pulling darkness, thrashing my limbs against the weight of specters still grappling at my legs. They hissed and snarled, their voices intertwining, like a distorting melody inviting me to join the haunting symphony. Join us, remember the nights of joy, the laughter you once cherished. They chanted, each echo wrapping around my thoughts, smothering my resolve. No! I screamed back, fueling my will to break free. I tightened my focus on the door, using every ounce of strength to wrench myself forward. The shadows screamed in rage, a cacophony of sound that threatened to drown me in its overwhelming force. With one last desperate thrust, I broke free from the icy grasp. Stumbling forward, I threw myself through the doorway. It felt like crashing through glass, the world on the other side sharp and blinding. My heart raced as I landed on the ground outside, the cool air rushing in with a cleansing relief, but my reprieve was short-lived. I could hear the whispers of the field behind me, the laughter echoing, cold and unrelenting. You can't escape us. You belong to us now. Their chorus chilled me more than the night that I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline fueling my flight, but before I could take more than a few steps, the ground beneath me convulsed violently. I felt as if the very earth were rebelling, angry and alive. I stumbled, falling to my knees, the oil-drenched soil slipping between my fingers, a grotesque reminder of the very thing that had lured me here. Suddenly, the earth split open, fissures yawning wide, entrapping the air around me in a reverberating roar. As I looked into the abyss, I shuddered at the sight of writhing shadows awakening from the depths. A sea of darkness, pulsating with an angry life of its own, began to rise, and I knew I couldn't stay here. Terror coiled around me as I scrabbled to find solid ground, but even as I moved, I felt it a pull unlike before, a presence beckoning me, growing stronger like the heartbeat of the earth itself. From within the fissure, hands clawed upward, ghastly and twisted, each beckoning my name. They rose in an unholy call, greed overpowering whispered pleas. With a final burst of desperation, I propelled myself back toward my car, the only bastion left. As I reached it, the cacophony erupted behind me, rising to a fever pitch, a cascade of anguish and despair. I barely had time to grasp the handle when a deafening crash rang out from the gaping fissure, sending dirt and debris raining down in a torrential hailstorm. Without thought, I leaped inside, fumbling with the keys, the engine sputtering before roaring to life. But just as I pulled out onto the gravel road, the ground quaked again, and I looked back. The shadows surged forth from the chasm, twisting into a cyclone of darkness, shooting toward my vehicle like a living entity determined to reclaim its lost prey. I slammed the gas pedal, adrenaline screaming through my veins, but the horrifying reality sliced through my fear. From the writhing mass of shadows, a figure emerged, no longer a spectral illusion, but substantial and luminous with an unholy radius. It held a familiar face, a friend, a family member, someone I thought forever lost, eyes glinting with darkness, mouth curling in a grin that echoed the laughter of the damned. "Come back," it beckoned with a voice that was both my own and alien. "We've missed you," and before I could comprehend the urgency in my blood, the figure lunged, an ethereal leap that consumed the distance. Just as the shadows engulfed the rear of my vehicle, the world around me spun, and I could feel the presence of those who had been lost merge with that single voice, drowning my screams in a terrifying unity of sorrow. And then the vanishing road split open, revealing a path that twisted into eternity, the horizon dissipating as if swallowed by the abyss. I raced forward, praying for salvation, but it soon dawned upon me the road behind was blocked by the very nightmare I had tried to escape. There was no going back. But what awaited me ahead in the night as darkness swallowed the stars? "This is only the beginning," whispered the shadows, intertwining with my fate, as the world faded behind me, unraveling like a distant memory. The true horror was yet to come. The engine roared defiantly against the darkness as I sped down the night-shrouded road, a slender path veiled in swirling mist. Behind me, the shadows writhed and twisted, a churning mass of darkness hungry for my return. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs like a caged beast as the shadowy figure of my past faded into the dusk, its tantalizing call echoing in my ears, an unending siren's wail urging my demise. Despite the surreal nightmare still clinging to my thoughts, a semblance of adrenaline propelling me forward kept the lingering dread at bay. I was alive. For now, but the road ahead was far from safe. The tires rushed over loose gravel, the weight of the night pressing down, making every moment treacherous. I could barely see, but I didn't dare stop. Stopping meant surrender. As I navigated the bends in the road, the lights beyond the windshield flickered ominously. My desperation turned to dread as I glimpsed something in the periphery, a figure standing at the edge of the trees, silver moonlight reflecting off its skin. In that split second, I thought it was another threat, but then something stirred within me, a foreboding recognition. Just as quick as it appeared, the figure dissolved into the night, swallowed by the mass of unforgiving shadows that flanked me. I forced myself to focus, but the haunting vision of familiar eyes threatened to tear my resolve apart. How many lives have been lost here, left enriching the dark ether of the field behind? What awaited me at the edge of this accursed land? Terror gnawed at the back of my mind, chipping away at my sanity with every passing second. I could almost hear the whispers rising from the ground, their calls converging into a single terrifying tune. "Join us." I passed the threshold of the oil field gates, and with it came an overwhelming sense of unease thick in the air, a weight almost tangible. Decrepit machinery loomed like sinister sentinels, their once fervent workings now silent, their rusting forms draped in shadows. The ghostly figures of laborers long gone danced before me, coal-black silhouettes that lunged into view and then vanished without a trace, their desperation palpable in the air. I parked my car hastily, barely grounding myself before swallowing an avid breath. My mind screamed to flee, yet some malignant force pulled me into the abyss of that forsaken field. A storm brewed, the winds howled through empty pipes like demonic laughter, pushing me toward the largest structure, a decaying oil rig jutting into the sky like a hollow tooth. It felt alive, thrumming with the shared desolation of all who had toiled there. "Here lies your truth," the wind rasped as it whipped past, almost taunting. I hesitated, but instinct drove me forward. Maybe answers would mute the haunting cries. As I ascended the creaking steps into the rig's belly, echoes of laughter disintegrated into tortured wails. The air grew heavier with foulness, each breath acute with the scent of decay and something sweeter, coppery, that summoned forth the taste of blood in my mouth. With trembling hands, I pushed through the rusted door, the hinge protesting with a mournful groan, and found myself in a cavernous room. Shafts of moonlight trickled through grimy windows, illuminating the remnants of a life long absorbed by an encroaching gloom. Mementos of broken dreams were strewn about dusty oil cans, rusted machinery, and scrawled notes that hinted at the grief and anguish carried by each soul lost within these walls. My pulse pounded in my ears as I stepped further inside, every creak a reminder of the darkness that hungrily watched from the corner of my vision. Shadows flickered at the edges of light, ever watchful and still. A rustling from the back corner broke my trance, a soft whimper that echoed like a child lost in the depth of despair. "Help us!" The faint plea seemed to penetrate the very fabric of the atmosphere, tugging at my soul, drawing me deeper into the den of horrors. That I approached the source, my heart threatening to break free from its cage. The trembling figure revealed itself a gaunt woman, hair wild and skin pallid, eyes wide and bereaved. The shadows behind her writhed and twisted, twisting into anguished faces that echoed her despair. "You don't belong here," she croaked, claws of trembling reaching towards me, but then she fell silent, as if succumbing to a deeper truth. The sound of laughter rippled the air, forever mocking, and the shadows surged, morphing into a terrible tempest coalescing in front of me. I stumbled back, panic roiling in my stomach as I saw shapes emerge, twisted remnants of former souls. My blood ran cold. They reached for me, fingers stretching into clawed appendages coated in darkness. "Join us! Join us!" became the mournful chant of the damned. "Get away!" I screamed, frantically retreating until I hit the wall behind me, my pulse thrumming in outrageous speed. The shadows closed in, and just when I thought I might be consumed, the woman's face transformed into that of my friend, the very one I never thought lost. Her lips parted, swallowing my voice as she wept. "Help me! Help us!" "No!" I cried, my body screaming in protest, dread crippling my instincts. I turned to flee, but darkness erupted in torrents, blocking my escape, coiling around me like a serpent. The shadows converged, wresting the very air from my lungs as they pulled me toward their wailing mass. That I was caught, pulled toward the vortex of despair, held captive by the faces of the damned, their eyes filled with a longing that mirrored my own terror. As my vision blurred and the darkness threatened to swallow me whole, a sudden force broke free from the depths behind me, letting loose a blinding light that enveloped the space. Just as I thought I could breathe again, the ground below cracked open, sending shockwaves through my being. Instead of curses or prayers, a howling wind rose, echoing with the rage of the forgotten. A horrific growl, deeper and fuller than any creature I had known, came from the ruptured earth, an ancient hunger awakening beneath me. That I felt the very fabric of reality begin to unravel as I glimpsed what lay below, flaming eyes and clawed hands rising, shadows no longer merely speaking, but screaming their hunger for flesh. And then everything went black. The void swallowed me whole, and the cacophony of those lost surged forth, desperate to reclaim their own as I was thrust into the abyss, spiraling deeper into darkness, where a voice called out only my name, again and again. But now I wasn't so sure whose voice it was that reached for me next. I floated for an eternity in that suffocating darkness. Time unraveled like frayed knots, the weight of the past heavy upon my shoulders as spectral hands clawed at the fabric of my existence. Awareness started to encroach upon the void, memories replayed in fragmented flashes, joyful summers, laughter echoing in vast fields of green, and the faces of those long gone. Among them, I could discern hers, my friend, smiling brightly, untouched by the darkness that had now claimed us all. Yet that warmth quickly faded, overtaken by the chilling realization that I was not alone. An insidious presence lurked, breathing down the back of my neck. It felt ancient, hungry, pulsating with an energy that thrummed like a broken heart. The whispers returned, wrapping around my mind like shadows seeking to crush my will. Join us, they cooed with twisted delight, reverberating through the darkness. There was a flicker, barely noticed at first, but it grew, an ember glimmering against the pitch. It expanded into a vicious flare, a singular point of light that began to reshape the world around me. I was engulfed in brightness, and suddenly the voices turned to agonized wails, the darkness retreating, recoiling from the very essence of light as it surrounded me like a protective cocoon. But that hope was short-lived. A woman materialized from the flames, her features glowing with a spectral sheen, the embodiment of beauty and anguish entwined. It was the friend I had lost, the one who had once been so full of life. You must leave. Her voice rang clear, but the urgency only betrayed the depths of her despair. You mustn't stay. The shadows yearned for you. Before I could respond, darkness surged forward again, peeling back layers of light with an insatiable hunger. It closed in, a wall of suffocation wrapping around me, stifling every gasp of hope. My heart seized as I felt the ground beneath tremble violently, spitting forth jagged shards of earth that clawed up through the light. The wind howled, tempestuous and alive, punctuated by a haunting timbre that echoed as if someone or something was laughing. Then, cascading from the depths below, a chorus of voices joined the cacophony, chanting in fevered harmony, "Your blood is ours. Your fate is sealed." My friend's spirit flickered, her visage crumbling under the pressure of the shadows as terror glinted in her once familiar eyes. Go. Find the truth. Before they pull you under. But I hesitated, ensnared by a monstrous conflict of emotions, dread for the unknown and an aching desire to unravel the lacework of mysteries binding me here. With a final scream of despair, her silhouette was swallowed whole by the crests of shadow, and suddenly I was alone in that void once more. Instinct demanded action. I bolted, propelled by sheer adrenaline. I surged through the darkness toward that distant light as it pulsed, a beacon in the misbegotten night. But the shadows followed, an insatiable tide, wrapping around me with fingers both soft and sharp. I burst free, crashing into the rig with a brutality that rattled my bones. The room felt different now, the light more vivid, but I was not safe. I sensed the malignancy pouring in through every crevice, its hunger insatiable. Blood dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the floor in beaten rivulets, an offering, maybe a sacrifice made willingly to quell the creature beneath. Desperately, I looked around, feeling the air thicken with something foul as the laughter surged and echoed incessantly. There on the walls, graffiti scrawled in red and black, chanting a language I could almost recognize. Homecoming, they read. To return is to be reborn. But reborn into what? As if prompted by my doubts, the roof of the room rumbled, echoing through the hollow chamber with impending doom. The shadows coalesced above me, darker than the void from which I had freshly escaped. Tendrils sprang forth, feathering the air with a malicious glee, wrapping around my limbs as if delivering a proclamation of conquest. Then, the ground splintered, opening wide into a chasm, jagged teeth lined with darkness yawning to swallow me. The wails intensified, the ancient voices beckoning me down into the abyss. No. Not again. I cried, resisting the grasp of inky appendages pulling me closer. My thoughts turned frantic, my heart thundering both from their touch and the weight of dark inevitability. Yet just as I feared letting go of my tenuous grip on reality, another face emerged from the dark, one I hadn't expected, one I had fought so hard to avoid. Help me, please, a voice quivered, desperate and familiar. My heart plummeted further as I stared into the haunted eyes of another friend, one who had vanished, caught in the gravitational pull of this cursed land long before. And in that moment of horror, I understood. The shadows did not merely consume, they harvested, seeking to merge our souls into an eternal lament for their own twisted design. Join us, the voices whispered once more, but this time, they came from within that I was no longer sure where I ended and the darkness began. The shadows wrapped tighter around me, the weight of my past crimes and unspoken fears clawing at the edges of my mind. The face of my friend, once a comforting presence, now morphed into a mask of despair, eyes wide with something horrifying. You can't save me, but you can save yourself. She pleaded, her voice cracking under the strain of the eternal darkness that engulfed her. That flicker of desperation reverberated within me, mingling with the frenzy of the grasping shadows, tugging at every emotion I had bottled up. I won't abandon you. I screamed defiantly, but the moment I uttered those words, the gauzy border between us became suffocating, expanding and contracting like chains around our hearts, tightening with every passing second. The ground heaved beneath us, fissures opened, black tendrils coiled upward like serpents eager to devour. As tendrils snaked around her wrists, pulling her deeper into the void, I felt my resolve thin and dissolve. This wasn't just a struggle of two souls, but a grotesque dance of shadows, weaving a tapestry of suffering as ancient as time itself. Then came the whispers again, a chorus of lost souls forever silenced by the darkness. You will be ours. Forever ours, they rasped, each syllable a long-forgotten promise, offering a twisted kind of acceptance that festered within the recesses of my consciousness. Suddenly, the shadows surged, dragging her screaming into the void, where her struggles became desperate flails. I lunged forward, but the darkness answered with an unyielding force, pulling me back just as fiercely as it devoured her. No. I cried. Not like this. There has to be a way out. A rift opened in the abyss, a gust of hot wind bursting forth, laced with the scent of rust and decay. Writhing in agony, the shadows pulled together, coalescing into a massive figure faceless, yet possessing an overwhelming presence that dwarfed every particle of hope left inside me. Your fate is entwined with the others, it whispered, a voice like gravel split open. To break free is to invite a darkness worse than this. All debts must be paid. And the living they shall witness the consequences of your choice. The ground beneath quaked, and reality shifted as a figure emerged from the edge of my vision, a ghastly silhouette, sitting against the wall, draped in shadows and blood. It was that of another friend, their body twisted unnaturally, mouth open in a silent scream, as their eyes glistened with painful recognition of my own torment. My God, no, I gasped, feeling bile rise within me. Every waking moment was crashing down like glass, shattering my last vestiges of courage. The shadows pulsed with glee, and I could feel their triumph wrapping around my heart, squeezing slowly, intoxicatingly. All your secrets, your buried sins, this is the reckoning, they hissed, the voices a chaotic whirl, drowning my thoughts in a symphony of despair. Then, as the chill seeped deeper into my bones, a sudden flash of intuition struck, the scrawled words on the wall returned to me, to return is to be reborn. If that is true, I whispered, heart racing, then I need to confront my darkness. Before I could finish my thought, the shadows tightened their grip on my throat, stifling my breath. No escaping. No turning back, they growled, and an image of my past surged forth, a parade of memories, moments of betrayal and truths never spoken, all swimming in a tempestuous sea of regret. Then the laughter crescendoed, a cacophony echoing within the chamber of my soul. They had toyed with me, revealing each remnant of pain that was mine to bear, building toward an explosion of emotion that would spiral beyond control. As agony washed over me, I felt the pull of both the light that flickered stubbornly at the edges and the darkness that promised release. I fought against the tide, knowing with each passing second that I was unraveling, but I couldn't turn away from the agonized scream straining within me. An idea ignited within the chaos, a desperate plan fueled by a borrowed flicker of hope. Maybe, I gasped against the dark embrace. If I embrace my guilt, I can break free from this cycle. But just as I steeled my mind to confront my past, the shadows recoiled violently, bellowing with rage that clawed and bit at my sanity. The walls trembled as whispers coiled tightly around my heart. You think you can turn the tides? We'll drag you under before you ever reach the surface. And as I fought to comprehend the enormity of what lay ahead, the ground beneath me shifted once more, revealing a warped, grotesque threshold that pulsated with an energy darker than the slithering shadows clawing to reclaim me. Step through to reclaim what was lost or perish with your secrets, the shadows teased, their voices rising in a haunting crescendo as the world around me melted away. With each heartbeat, the decision weighed heavy: sacrifice everything I had known or plunge deeper into the dread that promised freedom. As I inched toward the door, the echo of laughter exploded into a piercing scream that shattered the darkness, reeling me back and shredding whatever resolve I had left. I hesitated, but beneath the rustle and screams, I glimpsed a shadow creeping, morphing into the familiar outline of my friend again. Don't let them take you. The truth holds the key. She implored, desperately reaching out as more tendrils rose hungrily behind her. In that fateful moment, one truth blazed like a beacon amidst the thick gloom: I must act, and I must act now. But the door slammed shut, thundering iron sealing my fate, as shadows roared in victory, tossing me deeper into a harrowing abyss. I had a choice, but all that waited was spiraling darkness, and with that realization, I felt the world collapsing around me, plummeting into an unspeakable destiny, the final whisper echoing through the chaos: join us, join us. The air pulsed with an uneasy energy as I floated in the darkness, a mere fragment of consciousness struggling against the all-consuming void. The remnants of my friend's face flickered in my mind, a haunting pallor that wore desperation like a veil. I strained to remember her laughter, a sound I once cherished, now etched into my memory as a warning estranged by sorrow. "Join us," the shadows hissed again, their cacophony rising to a fever pitch that resonated in my bones, a chilling reminder that something far worse than mortality awaited those who faltered. The ground shook beneath me as I was torn from my chaotic thoughts by what felt like fingers of fire dancing against my skin. Something stirred deep within the inky expanse, a malignant force whispering promises that taunted my resolve. "You can't fight forever," it incanted, the voice smooth and serpentine, drifting lazily through the thick darkness, drawing nearer. "Every moment that passes strengthens our grip on you." And then I saw it shimmering in the twilight of this macabre realm, an ephemeral light that flickered just beyond my reach, pulsing rhythmically. It called to me, vibrant and alive, contrasting starkly with the oppressive blackness surrounding me. I felt my heart quicken, a dim ember igniting with urgency. Could this be the outlet I so desperately sought? A way back into the world, to confront whatever lay beneath the secrets I had buried? "What are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling as the shadows coiled tighter around me, willing me to despair as they tightened their grip around my heart. Without warning, the air thickened, and a scream ripped through the darkness, a visceral sound that clawed at the very fabric of my reason. It was a scream I understood, my own. Echoes of my past crimes melded into an aggrieved symphony, creating a haunting melody that rose with every breath. "Flee to the light or drown in the depth of your own misdeeds," the shadows taunted, their laughter pulsating in time with my racing heartbeat. "But know this, your fate is woven with those beyond the veil. Each sacrifice carves a path deeper into shadow." That thought surged through me like a jolt of electricity, igniting something darker than the abyss, the realization that the screaming voices were not just trapped souls, they were the echoes of my failures, the weighted shadows of every choice and every life I had touched in my selfishness. They were my friends, and my friends had paid the price for my indulgences. Suddenly, from the darkness coalesced a figure emerging, outlined against the faint light. A ghostly visage materialized, a girl whose silence whispered to the deepest recesses of my heart. She wore a crown of twisted thorns, and a wisp of sorrow clung to her like mist. Even through her anguish, I could feel unyielding power radiating from her ethereal form. "Help me!" she cried, her voice shredded with dread, fragments of her soul lingering as they sought mine. "There is no time. If you allow them to consume you, they will feast upon everything you hold dear, just as they did with me." My breath caught in my throat, the familiar pain rekindling memories of a sorrowful night I thought I had buried. I had once promised to protect her, her innocence was my burden, and I had let darkness envelop her far too easily. "No. Please, I can't," I shouted, panic igniting within me as the shadows surged violently, turning their malice upon her, their tendrils lashing out like angry vipers. "Don't let them take me. They're coming to claim you," she wailed, her form wavering like a candle caught in a storm. The shadows whirled around her, and with every second, I felt the tendrils wrapping around my heart, clawing at my very spirit. "Your past can only be contained in the darkness," a discordant chorus sang, wrapping around my skull like a vice. "Face your truths, embrace your memories, or succumb to the inevitable. Innocence is a fleeting facade." The figure cried, desperately reaching for me, her eyes glazed with pleading agony. "That's why they're ensuring you cannot escape. The more you resist, the more they bury you." The ground roared with chaos, splitting and shaking as if the world itself was collapsing, and with it, all semblance of the light faded. Panic knotted itself in my stomach, a desperation rising with each heartbeat as the shadows coiled around me, thickening the air with their hunger. The girl lunged forward, drawn into the darkness. "Hold on. I can lead you out," she gasped as the shadows recoiled at her defiance, surging with renewed fury that crackled and hissed like a storm on the horizon, and finally, with a deep-set breath, I made my choice. I could not allow darkness to consume me, I would face my fears. "I will not let your darkness claim me," I screamed, summoning every ounce of courage I possessed as the shadows howled, and raged at my rebellion, but as they writhed and fell away, a sudden clarity struck me, the echo of my friend's warning reverberated through my mind. The truth holds the key. It resonated like a chant, revealing what I had to confront. Just as the shadows began to recede, the spectral girl leaned closer, desperation twisting her expression. The truth will only save you if you confront it head-on. But in revealing one truth, they will claim another. It was then that I felt the ground tremble violently beneath me, a split forming, as the shadows gained strength again. I knew I had to act, and act quickly. It was the moment of potential salvation or damnation. But before I could gather my thoughts, the ground beneath the spectral form of my friend crumbled, and she vanished into the abyss, her screams swallowed by an encroaching wave of shadow. No! I cried, a chasm of fear erupting in my core. Their laughter returned, shimmering against the walls of despair, one less truth to hold. One more burden to bear. With my friend gone and the darkness surging around me, I was left teetering at the pipeline. I had the choice to face the shadows or let them consume me whole. Yet as the panic froze my heart, I didn't know I was not only drowning in darkness but also awakening an even more formidable terror. My heart trembled as I pushed forward. The ominous pulsation of the shadows echoed, "Allow your sins to surface." They didn't just hunger for fear, they hungered for vengeance. That I felt the dark energy gathering once more, and just before it could consume me, a thought seared through the fog. What if I could awaken the truths buried even deeper? What horror could I unleash when I finally revealed my deepest secrets? As I tipped toward the light, ready to pull those truths from the darkness, I heard it, the faint echo of a familiar voice, sobbing in the distance. My breath caught in my throat, a bone-chilling realization rushing over me. It couldn't be. Let me out. The voice called, a choked plea blending with the shadows. Free me, I can help you. As the darkness pressed down with an intensity one had never felt before, I turned toward the spectral glow that now drew me with urgent desperation, knowing it could lead to salvation or final ruin. Please, I'll give you what you want. I pled, shaking with terror as the tendrils danced menacingly around me. But then came an unexpected silence, the shadows pausing in their relentless pursuit. Then step beyond the light, they murmured, their tone dripping with mockery as I felt the very ground shift beneath my feet, embracing the truth. The desperate scream of betrayal nestled within. And in that moment, the darkness seemed to contract, drawing closer, preparing for the unveiling of secrets long buried and lost. What have I done? The echo of my friend's voice taunted, filling me with dread and regret. As I let my soul reach for the light, I knew it was a choice I would never escape from, because sometimes, embracing the darkness only heralded even greater horrors waiting to be awakened. And the shadows melted, revealing a horizon of nightmarish truths I may not survive. The ground beneath me reverberated as the last echoes of my friend's voice lingered in the air, a twisted specter hidden within the shadows. The darkness pulsed with a life of its own, each heartbeat a countdown to something horrific simmering just beneath the surface. Desperation clawed at my throat as I took a step forward into the grim unknown, the murmurs of the shadows morphing into ominous whispers. Are you ready to embrace your fate? They hissed, their tones blending into a singular threat that chilled my very essence. I could feel their breath against my neck, chilling me with the weight of ancient knowledge and torment. A stone wall of memories crashed against my mind. The tremors surged through the earth, sending impacts reverberating. I could sense that what lay beyond was not just a trial of courage, but a storm of my deepest regrets and unspeakable fears. My heart raced as I approached the luminous light, its glow flickering tauntingly, drawing me closer even as the shadows seemed to deepen with intent, coiling like a great serpent preparing to strike. Join us, the darkness urged, its voice a gentle caress that twisted into a suffocating grasp. Remember the richness of the pain you've left behind. But the remnants of her anguished plea burned in my chest, a flicker of resolve igniting within the consuming dread. I had navigated the abyss before, I couldn't falter now. Clenching my fists, I tried to block the haunting memories. My resolve solidified as I thought of the girl with the thorn crown. I had to expose the truths that bound me or be consumed whole by the pursuit of shadows. Leave me. I shouted, my voice resonating as the light flickered, revealing an expansive abyss swirling with malevolence. You will not take me. The air crackled, the shadows recoiling momentarily, but their fury only augmented, swirling around the edges of my vision like wild phantoms. I closed my eyes tightly, summoning the memories that lay stored like dark treasure in the vaults of my mind, each one vibrating with regret, images of my misdeeds unspooled before me, a cacophony of tenebrous guilt, moments when I betrayed trust, chose convenience over compassion, abandoned loved ones in their darkest hours. Faces filled with anguish, leaving sorrowful imprints, twisted and tormented, searching for a shred of humanity in the void I had crafted. Through the phantoms, I glimpsed a dark figure moving just at the boundary of the light, the shape slowly coalescing into a form I recognized too late. My breath hitched. It was the specter of the girl, not just a memory, but a living embodiment of my greatest shame. Her expression was a tempest of emotions, twisted in anger, sorrow, and a desperate yearning for closure. You chose me, yet you left me behind, she cried, her voice slicing through the darkness. It was your choice that condemned us. I didn't mean to, I faltered, but my words were swallowed by the encroaching shadows. The bile of guilt rose in my throat as her eyes bore into mine. Her presence anchored the pain I had fought so long to silence, her vivid form shimmering and threatening to dissolve back into the void. You cannot hide in the light when the truth waits to be unveiled, she hissed, her features warping, revealing the multitude of faces driven by rage and despair, my friends, drowned in judgment, seeking the justice I had denied them. An animalistic urge clawed at me to retreat, but as their anguished faces twisted behind the shadowy veil, I was rooted in a primal understanding. I couldn't escape, I had to confront the horror of my own creation. The light flickered violently, illuminating the mass of tortured souls as the shadows twisted further, becoming almost liquid, melding together at the edges, a ravenous tide of anger. A resounding echo filled my ears, a chant unmistakably familiar. Unburden your soul or be consumed by what you've abandoned. With dread coiling around my heart, I stepped closer to the spectral girl. Her face twisted in pain as she extended a hand toward me, trembling. You owe it to us. Speak the truth and set us free. Her eyes shone with a desperate light, urging me closer. I didn't mean to let you down. I stammered, shaken by the weight of my transgressions, while the shadowed figures loomed closer, eager for blood. Show us what you truly are, they echoed, every word rumbling like thunder as the ground shifted beneath us, threatening to tear apart. Their hunger pulsed, an unsettling rhythm that resounded within my chest, drawing me dangerously near the edge of reason. In a moment of resolve, I realized I had to yield. I am afraid. I shouted, my voice echoing into the cavernous dark. I am afraid of being left behind again. But then, amidst the chaos, the shadows recoiled as if struck perplexed, momentarily halted. It was a realization that unleashed a wave of frustration and noise. The shadows twisted violently, battering against the light. Your darkest fears give us strength. They cried, their voices merging into a frenzied symphony, but then the spectral girl's face morphed, revealing a glimmer of hope through the confusion, her eyes pleading with me. Only by facing the truth can you sever their grip. It is the key, the power that binds them. The ground trembled violently beneath us once more, fissures blossoming outward, revealing something beyond a chasm that yawned wide and empty. The cacophony intensified, the shadows roaring in fury as they sensed the shifting balance. Face us. Face your sins. They shrieked, their forms uncoiling and blending into a rising tide, a singular force intent on consuming every last shred of hope. And just as my resolve hardened for a final clash, the ethereal light shuddered violently, casting one final glow upon the fray, a visage appearing with urgency. It was a ghostly silhouette, stark against the abyssal void, demanding my attention. Do not listen to them. The figure screamed, a twisted distortion of familiarity, as fear gripped my heart like a vice. They're feeding on your dread. You must choose now. The darkness surged, enveloping me entirely, the air horrid with despair and anger as I faced the specter, a visage I hadn't anticipated, one that bore the weight of my twisted history. Join them or resist, the figure rasped, confusion mingling with a budding horror. In that choice lies your future, but the darkness is hungry. As the shadow manifest surged forth, I stood on the precipice of despair, poised between truth and darkness, grasping the ghostly hands outstretched to me, decisions bound in chains clinging to my very essence, knowing that either path might lead to salvation or doom. As the night closed in, with trembling resolve, I stepped toward the light amidst the chaotic cacophony, glancing back one last time at the shadows, their hunger palpable, because in that moment, I understood that everything I feared was about to become horrifyingly real. And in the cosmic dance of shadows, the haunting whispers lurked ever closer, waiting to snatch away whatever flicker of hope remained. The air pulsed stagnant and thick as I stood at the nexus of my past and my choices. A surge of dread washed over me as I clutched the ethereal hands, the warmth radiating from them contrasting sharply with the encroaching cold of the shadows. I could feel the perfect tension of life and death hanging in the balance, each choice a knife edge leading into an abyss. Panic clawed at my heart once more, and I recoiled, only to come face to face with a harrowing truth. Beyond the flickering light, I had left a residue of fear, sadness, and unspeakable horrors woven into the fabric of this cursed place. The world twisted and seethed around me, the whispers morphing into a cacophony of screams, reminding me of every face I had betrayed. The shadows, now in their full malevolence, howled, clawing towards me with talons of smoke and fury. Choose. Choose. They chanted, each word an unraveling thread of sanity that beckoned me to surrender. Instinct drove me forward, toward the figure of the spectral girl, her heartbreak a tether to my own buried guilt. If I speak the truth, I murmured, hope flaring momentarily against the black tide threatening to engulf me. If I share my sins, will you let them go? The girl nodded, her pristine form flickering like a candle on the edge of extinction. You can sever the cycle, you must confront your darkness before they pull you under. Yet behind me, the shadows shifted with palpable hunger, their writhing forms coiling like serpents, screaming in unison, we are your past. We are what you dwell on. Embrace us. With a deep breath, I stepped forward into the light. I am guilty. I cried, raising my voice above the clamoring shadows. I failed you when you needed me most. As the words left my lips, a wave of energy surged, a ripple that cast echoes deep into the heart of the darkness. The shadows recoiled, but their seething bodies surged back toward me, a chilling anger rising in response. The earth beneath shook and trembled, fissures stretching wider until light spilled down into the chasm, revealing chained figures trapped in terror, faces twisted in pain and rage. Help us! They screamed, their voices layered with desperate cries, the sound like nails scratching against the fragile fiber of reality. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs as I faced the flickering forms, familiar yet so grotesquely transformed. Their pleas wrapped around me, pulling at my consciousness, begging for resolution. I couldn't stay, I couldn't bear it. I shouted, retreating from the horrifying sight. None of this is my doing, lies. You abandoned us in our greatest darkness. The shadows thundered back, their tumultuous form tightening around me, drawing closer. They pressed against my mind, their whispers slithering into my consciousness. You thought you could escape. There is no unburdening without sacrifice. The spectral girl lingered in the periphery, her visage marred by the pain of countless lives I etched into the stone of my past. Face your truth. We were intertwined in your dark legacy. You must break the cycle. She urged, her voice a fragile thread, but even that grasp was weakening, shadows gnawing at her very essence. Suddenly, the light swung wide, spilling out a luminescent path, a bridge suspended over the yawning abyss. A sinister laughter rippled through the air, deep and resounding, echoing from the chasm below. Choose love or despair. Your desires will feast upon you either way, a voice echoed with feral intent, scaling the heights of terror. With a shuddering breath, I took a step toward the shimmering glow, its warmth brushing against my skin like a lover's caress. But the shadows surged forward, mouths wide in a nightmarish grin, faces imploding into familiar forms, each morphing and twisting into those I had wronged. Join us. They howled, bodies merging into one monstrous mass, each face a melody of despair, reaching for me. No! I screamed, thrusting my hands out as if to fend them off. Fear gripped my heart, cold and visceral. How could I escape the repercussions of my choices? As my fingers brushed the light, a spark erupted, igniting my spirit against the relentless shadows. I felt a force drawing me in, guilt, fear, and sorrow mingling into an overwhelming current. Suddenly, a long-forgotten voice broke through the clamor, sweet and haunting. Do not turn away from the truth, the light will blind the darkness. It was her voice, not the spectral girl but a shard of memory, the very essence of the girl with the thorn crown. Her face floated through the darkness, luminous even amidst the chaos, igniting a flame of recognition. Her pain flickered like a beacon. Show them your heart, she urged, the power of her words rippling through me. Reveal the fear that binds this suffering. In that instant, my heart thundered against the tide of shadows. I clenched my jaw and turned, shattering my own barrier. Fine! I shouted, my voice roaring against the veil. I am afraid not of my sins, but of what they will become if I do not name them. The moment those words escaped, the air exploded with a ferocious storm as the shadows lashed back against my defiance. You cannot unite both worlds. They shrieked, their fury becoming palpable, coiling tighter, screaming in primal rage. Release me, or I will expose all. The primal scream ripped free, spilling forth pains long buried. Everyone I had hurt clawed back into the light like flashes of fire, moments of truth unthreading the reality I created. With each confession I uttered, I felt their grip weaken, yet the cost became clearer as the shadows twisted violently, threatening to shatter my resolve. You must choose. The girl echoed once more, her silhouette flickering as the darkness receded momentarily, revealing the path to the embrace of the light, but the waves of despair crashed harder, the shadows rearming, even more chaotic, seeking to drown my light. No, they hissed, you cannot break free without sacrifice. And just as I made the fateful decision to weave my confessions into an act of defiance, the ground beneath me fractured, releasing a piercing scream as the very earth swallowed the core of my lies whole, a pulsing, cavernous howl that tore through the air, echoed by cries demanding to be freed. As the shadows erupted around me, enveloping my vision in tendrils of darkness spiraling into a gaping maw, I braced for the unknown terror that awaited my declaration. My heart raced at the precipice of truth. The horizon darkened, breaking apart as the shadows prepared to engulf everything I had ever known. In the midst of chaos, I felt my feet slip, the light flickering and dimming as I plunged toward the abyss. The shadows clung to my ankles, whispering promises of vengeance, salvation, and the weight of choices irrevocable. With the darkness threatening to consume me whole, I plunged into the depths, afraid of what awaited below, knowing that whatever horror might lie in wait, the path to redemption was eternal and filled with unimaginable terror. But there was no turning back. The darkness consumed me as I fell, a suffocating void that stretched infinitely in every direction. It felt as though the very essence of my being was unraveling, threads of my past disintegrating with each heartbeat. My mind raced, no longer tethered to the reality I once knew. Instead, it plunged through a vortex of memories, images crystallizing into vivid horrors that shaped the corners of my soul. Face the truth, the shadows sang, their voices melding together in a dissonant melody that echoed through the darkness. Face it or join us forever. I hit the ground hard, a jarring collision that momentarily stole my breath. I was no longer adrift, I had landed within a cavern, its walls slick and glistening, encrusted with the remnants of forgotten memories. Tendrils of darkness slithered around me, gripping my wrists like iron shackles, anchoring me to the very sins I sought to escape. I struggled against their binding, panic surging through me, but my voice had no strength left to scream. Help us, please! A haunting, desperate whisper drifted through the shadows, as familiar as the memories scrambling beneath the surface of my mind. Faces emerged from the obsidian depths, pallid and worn, eyes wide with the terror of betrayal. The girl with the thorn crown materialized before me, ethereal yet hauntingly familiar. You must answer for what you have done, she implored, her voice trembling like a lit candle flickering against a storm. No, I didn't mean to, I began, but the weight of their collective sorrow cut me off, a chorus of anguished cries that twisted my heart. "Tell us!" they demanded, shadows writhing as they surged forward, forming a twisted crowd, their bodies overlapping and distorting, mourning the moments we once cherished. "Tell us and free us from this torment or become just another lost soul." Suddenly, the cacophony of wails shifted into a singular voice, a chilling echo that sent shivers racing down my spine. "You must confront the abyss," it thundered, its depth overwhelming and suffocating. "It is the harbinger of your true mirror. Your sins await you." My heart pounded against my chest in sheer terror, but with a newfound sense of dread, I felt compelled to comply. Reluctantly, I stepped deeper into the encroaching shadows, each step weighed with the sorrow of every life tied to me. Memories exploded within me, chaotic and raw, forcing me to relive every unpunished wrong, every glance avoided. With each stirring recollection, flashes of hope ignited alongside horrific regrets. I saw the face of another friend, a boy who had trusted me, now twisted in agony. "Why did you abandon me?" he pleaded, echoing in a terrifying chorus of questions bouncing against the cavern's cold walls. Guilt rushed through my veins. I was scared. "I didn't know how to save you," I shouted, desperation edging my voice. "Scared? Or selfish?" they hissed in unison, their shadows prowling closer, a coiling mass of rage and sorrow. "Face the abyss and reclaim your soul, or suffer as we have." It was no longer just about escaping, it was about redemption. I ripped through the swirling memories as the shadows pulsed with anticipation. They hungered for my despair, their faces transforming into those I had betrayed, shifting from anger to an almost sympathetic sorrow. "Enough!" I shouted, fists clenched and heart pounding. "I won't let you take any more from me." As if summoned by my defiance, a wave surged through the shadows, stirring a violent air. I drew a sharp breath, feeling the coldness slide off me like a serpent shedding its skin. With a sudden clarity, I whispered the words I had been suppressing, truths I had buried, thoughts shaped by fear. "I am afraid of losing those I love," I cried, voice echoing through the cavern. I ran from my choices because I couldn't bear the pain of my failures. I thought I was protecting them by not being there, but instead, I condemned them. The shadows recoiled as light shimmered at the edges of the cavern, illuminating faces twisted in anguish. For an instant, I could see their sorrow morph into understanding. The air thickened, pressing against my skin, urging me to confront the darkness within me. "No!" I cried, shaking. "I will not let you claim me." But the abyss called to me, its pull inexorable, drawing me nearer with a growl that reverberated through every fiber of my being. With desperation, I summoned all the courage I had left, plunging deeper into the swirl of chaos. I choose to embrace my past. I choose to break the cycle. I choose to face whatever it is I fear most. The ground beneath me erupted, sending tremors racing through the cavern as the abyss attempted to grasp hold of my resolve. The light surged once again, illuminating the darkness like an explosive dawn, but when the shadows recoiled, something unimaginable happened. The jovial tendrils that lurked in the corners of the cavern twisted, revealing a blurring outline of myself, wretched and defeated, riddled with my own accusations. My doppelganger floated forward, eyes glimmering ominously, a reflection of every pain I had inflicted upon others. "You can never escape the darkness," it whispered, mockingly, the voice resonating deep within the caverns of my mind. "You will always return to those you abandon." Panic threatened to engulf me. "That's not true," I cried, voice breaking. "I can change." But the shadows lurked closer, invigorated by my fear, echoing the taunts of lost memories, reminding me of every minute I had spent trying to flee the horrors I had created. Then, as if compelled by an immense power, a fissure split open amidst the shadows, revealing an alternate pathway shining with brilliant light. "Embrace yourself," the spectral girl urged, her form gleaming as if inviting me toward the horizon of possibility. "Balance the abyss with your truth. You must transform your guilt into a force that will set the souls free." With a heart brimming with reluctant hope, I began to step, inch by inch, toward the radiant light that beckoned me, ready to reveal myself. But the abyss howled in fury, reshaping the ground beneath its twisted and tortured reality. "You will drown in this delusion." It roared, claws extending, desperate to consume my very essence, but I stood firm. "I will not yield." I bellowed, summoning every bit of strength I had. With my mind blaring the memories of those I had wronged, I reached out to embrace my truth, a multifaceted sense of grief and joy intertwined. "I am not just darkness, I am more than this." As I uttered those words, the light flared, shattering the chains that had bound me to despair. It shot forth like a comet, expanding against the shadow, illuminating every figure entwined within the abyss. The shadows writhed, overwhelmed, and in that blinding radiance, I finally saw them, the faces of those I had once lost, now inspiring me with a grace that commanded the surge of emotion beneath. Tears mingled with the light that poured powerfully through the cavern, engulfing the shadows in warmth. "Leave them. Let them go," I cried, and for the first time, I understood. I had the key. The truth would be my salvation. Even amidst the tumult, anger gave way to understanding, despair surrendered to hope. With a deafening roar, the shadows erupted, splintering like glass, retreating before the luminous force that heralded our release. "No!" they screamed, as if a part of them lingered in regret. The air thrummed and shattered like thunder, shaking the very foundation of the cavern, and then, still as a whisper in the storm, I found myself surrounded by those faces, no longer shadows, but vibrant essences, vibrant pieces of my own fractured heart. They reached out toward me, drawing me from the edge of insanity, reclaiming my heart and soul with gentle affirmation. But then it hit me like a sledgehammer. The abyss hadn't been defeated. It seethed just beyond sight, lurking at the edges of the radiance, hungry for what it had lost, a darkness waiting for the faintest hint I might falter. Stepping back from the edge of oblivion, I knew this wasn't the end, it was merely the beginning of a much darker journey. As I braced against the weight of the eternal night, one thought sent chills racing down my spine, a reminder of the darkness that still lingered, poised just beyond the light, waiting for the moment I would slip, once more, into its cold embrace. And so I stood, breathless amidst the throes of light and shadow, knowing that sometimes, the most horrifying truth is the one that echoes back to us from the depths of our own hearts. Because no matter how strong the light, the darkness will always be there, patiently waiting for the next door I would inadvertently open.